Well, hi guys. Welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe. Thanks for tuning in to Rosenfield 10, where I cover our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. Are you a Who Dat fan? If you're a Who Dat fan, subscribe to this channel. I love the Saints as much as you do. Subscribe to my channel. You'll hear what I'm thinking, and you let me know what you're thinking in the comments. I respond to my comments. And today we're going to continue to look at the upcoming 2026 NFL Draft. And in this video, we're going to talk about potential first round selections by our beloved New Orleans Saints with the 8th overall pick. But these are players that we don't normally talk about, and we'll talk about how shocking and surprising some of these selections would be. But I'm also going to talk about how each of these players could work for the Saints nonetheless to try to ease the blow a little. But yeah, let's take a look at this. When we talk about the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft for our Saints, we're talking about the 8th overall pick. There's a cloud of players that most people are considering. And I'll pull that up right here. These are 6 players that I think are on the top of everyone's to get list at pick 8. I think anybody out of this collection is exactly what Saints fans and the Saints organization should expect. Yeah, those players are. We got Arvell Reese, the linebacker slash edge rusher. We've got Ruben Bain, edge rusher, defensive end perhaps. We've got edge rusher David Bailey. And then we've got running back Jeremiah Love. We've got safety Caleb Downs. And then you've got the wide receiver du jour, whichever of the top 3 wide receivers you like. Tate, Lemon, or Tyson. So, pick 8 comes up. Those are the guys that I think all of us Saints fans are expecting the Saints to choose from. If any of these guys are left on the board, they're all kind of hovering inside that consensus top 10. It's going to be one of those guys. However, however, it may be somebody different. It may be that a couple of these players are sitting there at 8 and the Saints go a different route. It would be kind of surprising, perhaps shocking. And let's talk about some of these players. And we're going to start at some of the most, unlikely, and we'll work our way towards some of the more likely, but still surprising nonetheless, because I'd be pretty surprised and perhaps even shocked if a couple of these players are still there at pick 8 and we bypass them for somebody else. But let's prepare ourselves because, we pick at 8. We know 7 players are going to get taken before we draft. I'm showing you a list right here of it's basically 8 players. So, yeah, after Fernando Mendoza, 7 of these guys could be gone, and you're talking about maybe the only one left on the board is Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver, or you know, take your pick. Cornell Tate, one of the 3 wide receiver du jours, might be the only ones left, and it's a deep wide receiver class. Maybe the Saints would choose to go, an unusual route. There's a lot of depth at wide receiver. Maybe they don't want to take a wide receiver with the 8th overall pick. So imagine that 5 of these 6 players, five of these 8 players are gone, and the only 3 left are the wide receivers. You know, you could choose to address another position high in the draft at that point. So yeah, it may be shocking, it may be surprising. It's not out of the realm of possibility. So let's look at some of these other players the Saints could consider. And I'm going to start at first with the offensive line because no one expects the Saints to draft an offensive lineman with the eighth overall pick, but it's a possibility. We're not quite sure exactly the kind of team Kellen Moore wants to build. We know that the first draft pick he ever made as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints was an offensive lineman. And we also know he needs a good offensive line for his offense to work. He's used to having a really good offensive line. So there is a chance that offensive line is the top priority. And we all know we need to go get a guard. So wouldn't it be a shock if Olaiva Vega Ione was the eighth overall pick? It would be a shock, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of understanding. You know, Ione is 6'4". Ione, 6'4", 330 pounds. He's the best guard in the draft. Good pass blocker, good run blocker. He's expected to be a plug and play starter day one. People are talking about perhaps a tackle being the best player left on the board. You draft a tackle at 8, you're going to move somebody to guard. It's a possibility for the Saints to do this. And instead of taking a tackle and moving pieces around, you could just take the best guard. And Ione is that guy out of Penn State. So this would probably be the biggest shock. No one ever takes a guard in the top 10. Well, the Saints drafted Jim Dombrowski in the top 10. The Saints drafted Chris Naoli in the top 10. It's not out of the realm of possibility for the Saints to draft a guard in the top 10. So, yeah, you could just skip all of the questions and just grab the best guard. It's a possibility, and it would be a shock. The other two offensive linemen I'm going to talk about first, tackle Spencer Fano out of Utah, 6'6", 302 pounds. You do these simulators, and Malinoa and Fano get drafted usually before the Saints pick at 8. So, according to these simulations right now, the value of an offensive tackle for a team that needs an offensive tackle is still prevalent in the top 10, even if the tackle talent might not be there. Fano's supposed to work out to be a pretty good tackle in the league. I think he's a little light in the pants to move to guard, but you get Fano and you kick in Taliesin Fuanga to guard, and hey, maybe that's the route Kellen Moore wants to go. Maybe before Kellen Moore fixes anything else, he addresses offensive line. It's possible. It's not out of the realm of possibility. The other offensive lineman that we could take at pick 8, I'm going to mention Francis Malinoa out of Miami, 6'6", 315 pounds. A lot of people do imagine Malinoa kicking in the guard. He's a good right tackle, though, and you could kick Fuanga in the guard. Fuanga proved he could play left tackle and right tackle, so maybe he could do guard too. Or maybe you move Malinoa to guard. That wouldn't be a bad fit. A lot of people see that as a good move, just not drafting the player in the top 10, right? Well, if that's what Kellen Moore wants to do, if that's the kind of head coach Kellen Moore is going to be, we don't have really a lot of proof yet. We've got to have a couple of years of drafts under our belt before we see how serious Kellen Moore is about this offensive line. But he did address it quite a few times. You remember in training camp and preseason, we had a ton of offensive tackles that we were trying out. And when the preseason ended, it was like Kellen Moore cleaned house with all the backups and just started bringing in new players. It was as if he went through the whole training camp and decided, oh my goodness, I mean, we're dead in the water at tackle. We drafted a tackle in the first round, but then we ended up getting rid of just about everybody. We kept Fuanga and we kept Banks, and we had lost Landon Young to injury. But after that, we put Barry Wesley on IR. We put Easton Kilty on the practice squad, and then we went and got like 3 new backup tackles. We went and got Awesome Richards. We went and got Xavier Trust, and we went and got eventually Will Sherman. Yeah, we were. It was like Kellen Moore was desperate. The season's about to start, and he's like, I don't care. Just give me three new guys, as long as it's not the players I've been dealing with all preseason. It's wild, and I'm just saying, if Kellen Moore is that kind of guy, and he's going to take offensive line seriously, then don't be completely shocked if the pick is Yone, which would be shocking, or Fano, or Malinoa. More along the lines of reality for some Saints fans is that we may address edge rusher. Well, that big list I showed you at the beginning had edge rushers Arvell Reese, Reuben Bain, and David Bailey on it. They're the consensus top three edge rushers. If all three of those guys are gone by the time the Saints pick at 8, and there's a big chance they will be gone, what do the Saints do at edge rusher at that point? How many players are really worth a first round pick once you lose those top three edge rushers? Well, I've got 5 in mind that the Saints could consider. They're all getting some first round buzz. And if this football team decides they're in love with one of them, yeah, it may be kind of shocking who they take. One option is Zion Young, edge rusher out of Missouri, 6'5", 262 pounds. He had a really good Senior Bowl week, and he's a solid all around player, good against the run, good against rushing the pass. So Zion Young, out of the 5 that are there, after the top 3, Zion Young might be the next one in line for this football team. I wouldn't mind Zion Young. He's a good player and he's built well. 6'5", 262. I think he could handle it against the run really well. And he gets after the passer well. So I'd be fine with Zion Young. It would be surprising, but if those top 3 edge rushers are gone and edge rusher is what this team needs to address, he's one of the guys to choose from. Another one is Cassius Howell, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M, 6'2", 248. He's a touch light in the pants, and he's got those short arms. So Cassius Howell to me is definitely a first round prospect. I don't know if the length sees him fall to the second round or not, but I've heard he's not going to get out of the top 20. I kind of prefer Zion Young a little more to Howell. It just feels like a safer bet to me. But yeah, it's up to the team. If they want to go edge rusher and those top 3 are off the board, maybe Cassius Howell is their guy. And yeah, it's a designated pass rusher in my opinion, but hey, we could use it. If the Saints value it at pick 8, it would be kind of surprising, but it's a possibility. Another guy that's a possibility, TJ Parker out of Clemson, 6'3", 265 pounds. Another first round edge rusher that's not in the top 3, but maybe the Saints value Parker as the best guy. It's possible. Parker had a down year with Clemson this year. The whole team had a down year, but he's a really good player with really good tape in his past. So I think Parker would be a nice fit. I like the size. I think he would hold up pretty good against the run. And we know he can get after the passer pretty good. All right, before I go on to any edge rushers, let's talk about some more surprise picks at pick 8. Would the Saints consider a tight end? We all talk about the playmaker and getting a playmaker in the first round. Perhaps Kellen Moore has a vision with a playmaker at tight end like Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. 6'3", 245 pounds. Kenyon Sadiq is a incredible athlete. So I think this week the combine's going on, and I think that if Kenyon Sadiq participates, he's going to blow everybody out of the water. He's just going to reaffirm what everybody knows, that he's a special athlete, and he run blocks and receives pretty well. He's the number 1 tight end in this draft by a long shot. And you worry about tight end being one of them positions. You don't draft it in the top 10. But if Kellen Moore wants a playmaker, That could be his cup of tea. That might be what he's thinking he wants to do. Can't argue. If we go get a wide receiver, and I'm excited about Kellen Moore adding a playmaker to his team, that excitement kind of has to lend itself towards tight end as well. I mean, what could we do if we had a stud like Kenyon Sadiq and a Kellen Moore offense with this brand new quarterback of ours? And it's not out of the realm of possibility, though it would be pretty surprising, perhaps even shocking. Who else am I going to talk about? Another edge rusher, Keldrick Falk. 6'6", 285 pounds. Kendrick Falk is a freak. He's strong, and he's going to be really good against the run. My idea is to put him at defensive end and have him play against the run well, and I think he'd make some things happen there as a pass rusher. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush right now. It's got to develop. Keldrick Falk has 10 total sacks in his college career. You look at a guy like Cassius Howell who had like 12 or 13 this past season, and you think of Falk only having 10 for a whole career. Man, Howell gets 12 in 1 year. Falk only has 10 for a career. Cameron Jordan had 16 and a half sacks total in his college career. That was what he needed to develop when we drafted Cameron Jordan. And his first season as a rookie, he had one total sack. And now, yeah, he's in what, the top 20 all time in sacks. Cam Jordan's a totally different player than Falk. I'm just saying, sometimes pass rush needs to be developed. And with a guy physically superior as Keldrick Falk, it's not out of the realm of possibility for lots of organizations this year just to see, you know, big things from Falk. Personally, drafting Falk at pick 8 would feel a lot like all of the other defensive end moves we've made in our recent past. Go and get the big, physically awesome dude. Didn't quite do it in college, and you hope he does it in the league, and then it doesn't happen. We've had success stories, but we've had failures as well. I'm a little nervous about Keldrick Falk, but I think it would be an improvement over somebody like Nathan Shepard. So there's that. You want to get really big on the defensive line? How about defensive tackle Caleb Banks out of Florida? 6'6", 330 pounds. What a stud. This might be the most impressive specimen at in the draft. 6'6", 330. The arm length is insane. And even though, yeah, his production in college is a little hot and cold, stats leave a whole lot to be desired. He's another one of those guys that is just so physically awesome that you just see it's gonna work. Now you don't expect a lot of sack production from your defensive tackles, especially a big guy like this. You expect sack production out of your edge rushers like Keldrick Falk. Caleb Banks, he might get you a few sacks here and there, but I think his transition in the league is a lot easier to see as far as just being a problem in the middle of the defensive line and having the physical prowess. Banks can just dominate on that line. Uh, it would be really surprising to get Banks. But yeah, I mean, this front office has fallen in love with specimens before. So guys like Falk aren't out of the question. Neither is Caleb Banks. He may be the top defensive tackle in the class were it not for Peter Woods. But before we talk about Woods, let's talk about a cornerback. Jermod McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee. 6 foot, 193 pounds. Did not play all year this past year. You got to go back to his 2024 tape to see what kind of a player he is. But yeah, he's coming out in the draft and he's expected to be a first round selection. And half of the prognosticators say he's the best cornerback. It's out of him or Mansour Delane. And a lot of people are saying Jermod McCoy's the guy. It's not somebody I really ever consider at pick 8. I do consider Mansour Delane, but McCoy, Jermod McCoy That's a weird name to say. He's just somebody that stays out of your mind because he didn't play at all this past year. But it's one of them things. Maybe that guy fits into a Brandon Staley defense the best at DB, at cornerback. So it would be surprising, maybe even shocking, but it's a possibility nonetheless. All right, which edge rusher after the top three would be, in my opinion, the one to target next? Though it would still be a surprise at pick eight. Yeah, my favorite edge rusher after the top three would have to be Hakeem Mesidor out of Miami. Really like the player, 6'3", 280 pounds. Man, that's a big dude, and he can do it all: stand up and get the hand in the dirt. And yeah, I get a little excited when I think about Mesidor wreaking havoc at defensive end, as well as standing up, on early downs. He could do it all the time. I think Mesidor is a lot like Payne to me. You put him out there, you find out during the game which position works best for him. Where's he having more success in every game? You just put him against the guy he's going to whip and let him go at it. Hakeem Mesidor, yeah, it would probably be my number one edge rusher after the top three. So to get him at pick eight wouldn't be as shocking, but still, what about a month ago, Mesidor was a second round projection, so still pretty surprising. It's something I would be excited about, though. A guy I would totally be excited about, though it would be a big surprise, getting a big defensive tackle like Caleb Banks, or no, not Peter Woods, Hayden McDonald out of Ohio State. 6'3", 326. Man, I do love Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech. I wish and I hope and pray he's there in the second round, but I think Lee Hunter is getting a lot of buzz to go in the first round. I've mentioned Caleb Banks here. I'm not going to mention Lee Hunter. I've got him after these guys, Caden McDonald and Peter Woods. Caden McDonald, yeah, he's probably the best all-around defensive tackle there is in the draft. If you're going to play him at nose, and you can probably still sneak him at end. Banks is another guy that you could do that with. Peter Woods can play all up and down the line too. So Caden McDonald would be a big shot with the eighth overall pick. A less shock would be Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson, 6'3", 315. He's the consensus number one defensive tackle. So if a defensive tackle is taken in the top 10, it's probably going to be Peter Woods. And man, I see him fitting on this team well at defensive end and at defensive tackle and passing downs. I mean, I just don't know if I want to. Oh, my son's here. Hold on. Well, I've been recording this whole time with the fan on my computer, so I hope that hasn't been compromising the audio, but we'll continue nonetheless. Peter Woods at defensive end to me would be just a huge upgrade on this team. And we didn't get a lot of production out of Woods and Clemson this past season, but the talent's there and the upgrade at a position of need for this team would be there. Peter Woods is the first one I'm mentioning that wouldn't be a total shock at pick eight. But yeah, it would be surprising, especially if anybody in that top eight that I showed you to start the video is still sitting there. But yeah, there would be a vision. And like I say, Kellen Moore talked about the trenches. I expect the offensive line to be a serious matter for him as he is our head coach. And if he means trenches on the defensive side, and he's mentioned it a few times as well. And yeah, it wouldn't be such a shock. The next guy I'm going to talk about is a guy on my top 10. I'm going to talk about two other guys. Both of them are in my top 10, but they still would be big surprises. Cornerback Mansoor Delane out of LSU, 6 foot, 190 pounds. It would be shocking if one of those top eight are still there and we go ahead and grab Mansoor Delane instead. Cornerback, though, that's a major position. If this is the guy that Brandon Staley's in love with, if he has a vision for Delane in this team, then the value's there at pick 8. It really is. It just would be pretty surprising because we all have ideas of how to better improve this team, and if this is the route they want to go, a defensive end like Peter Woods or a cornerback like Delane. Yeah, it would be surprising, but it would make a lot of sense. And the last guy I'm going to mention in this video of round one selections that would be shocking by the Saints, I'm going with linebacker Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. Yeah, if any of those top 8 players are there and we grab Styles, it would be pretty surprising. But when you get to the draft, if we haven't made the appropriate moves, if we haven't re-signed Demario Davis and haven't addressed middle linebacker in free agency otherwise, it wouldn't be as big of a shock. But, like I say, everybody's got their favorites, and it's typically in this group of 8 here. So that's one of those guys is the guys we're expected to take. But if not, I just gave you a list of 15 players. They'd be surprising, perhaps even shocking, but they're all still options at pick 8. And I've told you how the Saints could utilize all of them and the pluses. So there you go. It's just some more breaking down of draft prospects for you guys. I mean, if you're subscribed to my channel, you've gotten a lot of it. Subscribe to this channel. Do it right now. It's free. Click subscribe. Keep me in the Who Dat family. I'll let you know what I'm thinking. You get some information along the way, something to look at, something to talk about. You let me know what you think in the comments down low. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later.